Here again is a small rhizome portion, and there's the capability of 2 or 3 plants being produced off of that piece should it get back in touch with the soil somewhere. Equipment movement through sites is one way that we get the seeds being spread around. This is a power line right of way here where a fire line is being cut. But when that piece of equipment leaves that location, it's got Cogongrass seed and rhizomes all over it. And unless it's sanitized completely and things, it's going to be a real problem. Hunting operations, bird hunting as in this case, establishing food plots, hay that moves into our state, all of these are issues which bring this material to us. The areas that we have in South Carolina, we feel, probably came from some of these very locations. And that hay may be used, in establishing sites, but it might be even just the fact that you've been out in Florida or Alabama or somewhere, you've walked through some areas, you can collect these fine seeds on your clothing, you can bring them back to us that way there too. So the seeds have lots of ways of moving. And by the way, you remember that picture about 1 to 4 feet high? Well, this guy must be awfully short, or else the Cogongrass is much bigger. It is much bigger. So there are cases where it's been seen to be as high as 6 feet. Here's a small patch of it again that's been established in a forest stand. This is probably somewhere around 2 years of age. And by the next time that you come back and look at that spot, it's going to fill that whole, that whole slide as far as width, not in depth. But you'll see it continually to grow and filling in the area there. We mentioned the fire problems and how hot it burns and the fact that it will eliminate other vegetation from the site. The problem is, though, here's the area that's burned, and look at all those green Cogongrass shoots that are coming up across that whole site. Those rhizomes haven't been hurt by all that fire, and the tops have been removed, so every one of those bud pieces I talked about gets the opportunity to see if they can't make the plant this time around. I want to mention again that you have the opportunity to call in for your questions and to use the toll-free numbers that should be on the screens periodically, and that'll help you to get in touch with us and ask the questions that you want to ask. Let me talk a little bit about the task force in South Carolina. Clemson University has 4 departments that are involved in the task force. These 4 departments work together in trying to bring resources of the university to bear with regard to controlling this problem. The Department of Plant Industry in the middle is a primary group with regard to the control of this plant. They have responsibility for the eradication component of it and are very much involved in that component throughout the whole state. We also have the South Carolina Forestry Commission, the U.S. Forest Service, the South Carolina DNR, and you can see a whole list of different groups there that are involved. The latest group that's joined in the task force has been the South Carolina Department of Transportation, and we're always seeking new partners as far as people that can work with us on the task force. This job isn't going to get done by any 1 or 2 people working to see what can be done. The objectives that we have as a task force is to develop partnerships with interested parties, and we need to look at and determine what actions are needed. I know that Steve Compton and I, who meet him in a few minutes, he and I work pretty well together. We've had a lot of lunch meetings, over time as we try to fill in and work on Cogongrass along with the other things we work on. But anyway, we're trying to coordinate efforts and implement educational activities like this one. And then the final thing is what we're really trying to do with this survey, and that is to place eyes on the ground that can assist us in locating where Cogongrass is in our state. Now, where do we have Cogongrass in South Carolina? We know where we have it, but what is surprising is that we probably have it in some places we don't know, and that's what we need to find so we can get it under control and see that we don't have it becoming the problem. What is the threat from ornamental Cogongrass? That's another problem we need to find out about, and we're learning more about that. And then how do we control Cogongrass? There's lots of things that have been tried. The techniques are getting better as we go along, and fortunately, I think there is some success that can be seen. But for those who think this is going to be a one-time treatment or something of this nature, they're sadly mistaken. It's going to take many treatments in order to control Cogongrass and keep it out. The idea then is to get it out early rather than waiting for late. When we look at Georgia, we notice that there was a flat line, and that we have the same situation in South Carolina for a number of years as far as the incidence of Cogongrass in the state. Then all of a sudden, what happens is you reach that population level and it starts going up and up and up, and it continues on going up. Now, we are still in that flat line area within South Carolina, or at least we think we are. And I make that comment because back here in about 2002 or 3, Georgia declared that they were Cogongrass free. Didn't quite work out like that. It was based on an aerial survey, and aerial surveys just don't do very well in trying to find a critter like this one. Now, I mentioned the ornamental forms, and the ornamental forms are a real problem, and that's one of the things that the Department of Plant Industry really works on when they work with nurseries and other people, is seeing that if we keep these forms out of our state. Unfortunately, the laws that exist in one state don't always match the laws in another state, and we do see ornamental components, being sold in nurseries in different places. Everything's done to try to educate these people so that they know that any form of Cogongrass is not acceptable here in South Carolina. If you want to have an idea of what this little pretty little plant can do, it looks like this in your flower bed. And you can say, oh, look at the feature that it's added. And Southern Living Magazine did this article, and I'm sure they weren't thinking about spreading an invasive species, but for some landowners that's exactly what's happened, where Cogongrass has taken over everything around their houses, and that's all that they have in those beds now. It's not only that it stays in the beds, it creeps right on across the yard and goes right on over to your neighbor's property, and it just keeps on going. So we do need to work to control all varieties of Cogongrass. We have a website that has additional information. There's one is a general website on Cogongrass. It's a kind of a national clearinghouse website, and then you have the Clemson website there where you can go and you can find out. And we'll find out about Cogongrass in our